And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they will be the subject of a congressional hearing this morning. That's when the House Financial Services Committee takes a look at restructuring the troubled GSEs. Joining us right now with a preview is Representative Paul Kanjorski. He's a member of the Financial Services Committee. He is also the chairman of the Capital Markets Subcommittee. And Congressman Kanjorski, thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Becky.
The GSEs have been the biggest looming problem that still exists. The idea that we get financial regulatory reform and it does not include Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, how big of a disappointment is that?
Well, they have a separate regulator, and of course they're a structural problem that is very large and very difficult, but it can be handled in a separate entity from the securities area that we're really working on now. It probably would have been wise to do everything, but that's like remaking the world, and we really don't want to do that. This is an extraordinary separate problem of hundreds of billions of dollars of exposure, and we're going to move into that area immediately after we get regulatory reform passed in the next several months.
But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the problem becomes, are these now government entities, or do they need to be split up and privatized? What's the underlying answer, you think?
Well, there are several alternatives. We're dealing with everything from creating 10 or 12 little Fannie Mae's and Freddie Mac's to absolute privatization, to restructuring what we have today and just doing a rehabilitation program of what we have today. We haven't arrived at that. I think on my desk I have 5 or 6 fundamental alternative solutions that are being suggested by the academic world and the expert world of finance, and we haven't arrived at it. That's one of the reasons for the hearing today. We're going to hear from Secretary Geithner and get his proposal and the administration proposal as to where their thinking will go, because this is a joint effort between the Congress and the White House.
I guess the big question, though, is should this be controlled by the government? Fundamentally, is this a situation where the government should be saying, yes, we want to see more Americans in houses, and therefore we will back this up, or should this go back to market-controlled? Because for a long time, obviously, we were living in the middle, and we found out what happens with that.
Well, I guess it's dangerous to conclude that after everything that happened after the last 2 years is a result of some mistake or wrongness. That's not correct. What we have to do is get the ship back on course, not necessarily redirect the ship in its entirety. We need a robust real estate market in this country. We're going to have a growing population. We have a need for residential housing. And up until now, there hasn't really been a swell of a private market. If I could make the suggestion, and I think Wall Street's escape from some of the responsibility of the disastrous subprime loans that were structured into these pools and sold in securities, because really the last 4 years, they were the ones that formulated those vehicles that caused the serious problems in our system. It wasn't Fannie or Freddie.
No question. There's a plenty of blame to go around. You can look at everything from cheap money going on for far too long. You can look at the mortgage bankers who were handing away money to people who should not have been getting it. You can look at consumers who were signing up for loans.
Mention the Congressman.
Well, also, no, honestly, when it comes down to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, there was a push from Congress to say we want more and more people to be in houses in America. Is there a limit where maybe we shouldn't push beyond, or is there some way to kind of find this without putting us into the disastrous position we got in the past?
Absolutely. It shouldn't be the role of Congress to set the rates of or percentages of the number of American citizens that get into housing. That we should feed off the normal market for that. But we can't have a collapsed market. We're now down to 400,000 units a year, right, and we were up to 1.3 million a year. That's an extraordinary change of events, and 400,000 units a year is not enough to house the American growing population. So we have to resolve the problem. But I don't see the private market knocking on the door saying we can handle all this, don't worry about it, government, get out of the work. They only want to get involved where it's extraordinarily profitable and it's safe. But when the risk comes in from the fluctuation within the market, they will run. And that's the precise moment that Fannie and Freddie are necessary to keep a level producing market in the country. So we've been through this several times before with the advantages and the need of an element like Fannie and Freddie. Our problem now is to recalibrate what happened and do a better job and find something. I'm more interested in, the most important thing I'm interested in is let's not allow these entities to become so large and interconnected that they cause systemic risk to the system. And to a large extent, I'm leaning toward favoring many smaller Fannies and Freddies that may have a quasi-governmental connection as the large ones have had in the past. But that if they fail, they can be allowed to fail without threatening the entire economic system.
So that way you can have the moral imperative to warn people that if they get in trouble, or institutions, if they get in trouble, they're gone next time around?
Absolutely. Throw them a life jacket only if it's something that fits within the scheme, but more than not, don't have the life jackets in storage. Don't make the American taxpayers responsible for taking care of speculative situations or bubbles.
We have a long way to go to get to what you just laid out from where we are right now, because Fannie and Freddie are a heck of a lot bigger than when all of this started. What do you see? Is this a process that takes a year, that takes 2 years, that takes 5 years?
I think the roll down has to be handled gingerly with timing in mind and can't be done swiftly, because, you know, we're talking at a multi-trillion-dollar center of control in the financial market. I think Fannie and Freddie are somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.5 trillion in mortgages. That's a substantial part of the real estate and mortgage market of the United States. So to do a wind down or do a significant course correction, I think we're looking more at years than months.
All right, so years, plural. Don't expect that we're going to get a...
But it's good medicine for the system. The very fact that there's now interest in this and there's a stimulation in the real estate market is a good indicator to me, and I think to many people in the financial industry, that we're starting to come back. So it should be a very positive thing. The fact that there's action out there, and let's find a system that works and works well, that's a very healthy sign for the whole economy.
All right, Congressman Kanjorski, thank you very much.